I'm just curious. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see so many new faces, and I just like those of you who are here for the first time to put up your hands, so I just have an idea how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, that's fantastic. Hey, well, welcome. I'd be very interested to know how you found out about these sessions and why you're here. Maybe we'll talk about that later. I would like to, as usual, we'll start with a meditation. This is partly guided, partly on your own this time. And let's just take a couple of minutes to settle into our seats and prepare for the evening. Nothing much happens in the next couple of minutes except just coming to a position of comfort in body and an awareness of what you're bringing into the room in terms of what happened today, emotions, thoughts, stray ideas, planning, just what's on your mind. So we could just take a couple of minutes to settle. Eyes open or closed, doesn't matter, but as you begin to settle, you'll probably want to change your position a little bit just to relax a little further. You might become aware of some tension that you've brought in with you. There is no way to do this wrong. It is simply to sit and be you, having just come in off the street. And some of you among very new people in a new setting. Just explore what that's like for a minute. At this point, I'd like you to become aware of the movement of your breathing and just feel the air entering your body, leaving your body. And I'd like to suggest that we do just a very few minutes of counting the breath. My suggestion is 5 counts in, and when you're ready, 5 counts out. You can adjust that as you wish. But just use the stability of the numbers to center you on the breath. And think of the out breath on those 5 counts as an opportunity to settle back and notice the degree of physical ease that you might feel. And if there is tension that you're aware of, it's important not to try and fix it, but simply to just let those tense spots float in your awareness. There's no need to do anything about them, just be with them. So for 2 or 3 minutes, 5 in, 5 out. If your thoughts wander, just come back to 5 in, 5 out. And now I'd like you to think about releasing that counting exercise and just let the breath come in and out on its own without having to count. If you enjoy the counting and you find it helpful, then do continue. There's nothing too prescriptive about all this. But those of you who wish can release that counting exercise and just become aware of the breath in, noting perhaps in, and then the breath out, noting out. Continue to note any tension that you might be feeling, or restlessness, or any discomfort or pleasure that you have with the process, and just let those sensations hang. You can try to not intentionally breathe in, but just let the breath breathe itself. Let it find you. So at the bottom of the breath, it's often helpful just to pause and wait for the breath to come in on its own. You're just observing the body doing its thing. If you are finding that you are striving or struggling to maintain your focus on the breath, a simple phrase such as "striving is not necessary" can sometimes help. Or "I don't need to work at this." Just allow the breath to come in and out on its own. Striving is unnecessary. If intrusive thoughts come in that take you off the breath, just when it's time, you can simply notice them, and the content is not important, and you can just let yourself go back to the breath. Once again, there is no way to do this wrong. We simply sit and be who we are. can use your sense of sound, your sense of hearing to note any sounds that appear in the room. Notice their occurrence and their fading away. Notice your response to them. And now when you're ready, take a couple deeper breaths just to reconnect with the room, the people around you. Open your eyes if you've had them closed. Thank you, everybody. Did some of you go to sleep? Sometimes we worry about the fact that we go to sleep when we're meditating. I did yesterday. I was out for quite a long time, and we can work against going to sleep in order to continue meditating, but sometimes it's just a reminder that you're tired and you need to have a rest. So your body is telling you something. So if you feel sleepy, it may be just simply that you're tired. Tonight we're going to look, I prolonged this meditation a bit further than usual tonight because I want to look at this whole experience that you've had in the last 10 minutes or so quite closely in terms of what the experience was and how we can sort it out a little bit and how to understand it. Often in our WTM sessions, we talk about bigger ideas having to do with the meditative process, and those talks are really good. They're bolstering, they provide a wonderful framework. But tonight I'd like to just stay down where the rubber hits the road. And just what is it like when you're sitting on your chair, on your cushion? What is this practice like, and what do we do about that? To use the metaphor of being a pianist, we can think about the meaning of being a concert pianist and our hopes and goals for that and why we practice. But we can also think about what it's like to put our fingers on the keyboard and practice moment to moment. And that's what we're going to be looking at tonight. I noted two sort of readings on the blur. One is Larry Rosenberg's book from I think it's 98, and it's called Breath by Breath, The Liberating Practice of Insight Meditation. Larry is 93 now, he's not well. He's living in Boston. He started the Cambridge Insight Meditation Center in Boston many years ago. And he was one of my first teachers, although I never met him in person, but my first introduction to insight meditation was through Larry Rosenberg. Somebody gave me a cassette tape, if you can imagine such a thing. You have to have a certain number of gray hairs on your head to know what a cassette tape is. But I was hooked. I really liked his teaching style. And the book Breath by Breath is one to be recommended. It's a very clear, well-written book about basic meditation. And the other item is Tara Brock's video, also called Breath by Breath, Inviting Relaxation and Ease. And those have been my resources for tonight, but I also would recommend that you avail yourself of them if you can. The Brock video is about 20 minutes long. It's really good meditation tape. She's a little bit, not everybody likes her style in the beginning, but always when I finish the tape with Tara Brock, I'm pleased. I feel good. She's done the work. She's very good. She has a particular way of presentation that may not be to everybody's taste, but the material itself is first rate. So I highly recommend her work to you. So I'm going to start off with a story of my own experience recently. I was fortunate enough to take a cruise to the Arctic. It was just a small cruise. I have to get defensive about it. It's only 180 people, not one of those great big things with carousels and 4 pools and all of that. It was hiking and Zodiac ride kind of thing and lots of good adventures. And on this trip, we had many opportunities to hike on the tundra. And that was a spellbinding experience for me. It was just staggeringly beautiful, so remote, very, very lush. I always thought it was kind of a hard scrabble surface, but it's sometimes many, many inches of vegetation, and sometimes you can't even see your feet. When you take a step, they disappear into the vegetation. It's very spongy and soft and very, very attractive to walk in, very easy, but quite hilly, mountains on both sides often, and stretching way back, riverbeds, and it's quite magical. And as I was walking one day, I realized that I wanted to be connected with this land. It was a wonderful opportunity for mindfulness, for practice in nature. What was on my mind? Well, we have leaky windows at home, so I was trying to figure out how to, what are we going to do about that, and when's the guy going to come when I get back? And then I was thinking about, I have a little pension problem right now that I'm trying to sort out, and how am I going to handle the lady when I'm on hold for so long, and that, and other stuff like that. And every now and then I would come to and think, what am I thinking about this crap for? Because here I am on this beautiful tundra and I'm not connected with it at all. And it was really interesting. I mean, I had this practice for such a long time that I knew to become aware of that layer of thought that inhabits all our minds, and mine too. And it goes round and round and round and round. The lady on the end of the phone, the leaky window guy, this, the that, what's for lunch on the boat, and everything. And there's that layer, and it obscures your connection with the real world outside your mind. It gets in the way. And so when I realized what, I just kind of explored that in a way that acknowledged that I was having the thoughts, but trying not to buy into them, trying not to get too caught up in them, and realizing that, hey, I can reconnect back with what's under my feet. If I just acknowledge that thought is there, it's in the way, I can choose to place my attention elsewhere. And that's a habit that I've had for many years, but it really came home to me that I can have confidence that there is another place to go than your thoughts, that you can let go of that swirl of stuff and connect with something that's around you that's much more elemental and in some ways much truer. So there's a virtual reality in your head, but there's another reality outside your head that's called life. And it's important to make a connection with that. Meditation is all about connection. And we can connect with the thoughts, but we quickly see that the thoughts are not that fulfilling because they just take us round and round and round, don't they? And you can suffer because of your thoughts. Thoughts are good. We're going to come to this more in a minute, but they can also create barriers for you in terms of understanding the world around you and connecting with it and being influential, showing up in the world. So that experience on the tundra was great because I kept flipping back into my preoccupations and then going back into a connection with the beauty around me. And it was just being able to navigate between those two facts of life, thoughts and other stuff outside myself. It gave me confidence that it is possible to find an alternate reality to the one that's just in your head. And it's important to have that kind of confidence that this is an effective practice for reconnecting us with who we are and with the world around us. So paying attention to the mind without being drawn into the thoughts gives us the power to let it go. I'm going to read a quote from Larry's book, and he is quoting Thoreau. And you will see, Thoreau is saying the same thing that I was just saying, but maybe says it better. Of course, it is no use, Henry David Thoreau, the American philosopher, transcendentalist. It is no use to direct our steps to the woods if they do not carry us thither. I am alarmed when it happens that I have walked a mile into the woods bodily without getting there in spirit. In my afternoon walk, I would like to forget all my morning occupations and my obligations to society, but it still happens sometimes that I cannot easily shake the village. The thought of some work will run in my head, and I am not where my body is. I am out of my senses. What business have I in the woods if I am thinking of something out of the woods? So this sense of being able to transition from the village to the woods, for example, is basically what the third noble truth of Buddhism tells us, which is there is a way out of suffering. There is a way out of what the mind throws up that can lead us in all sorts of directions. There's a way out. And I think we sometimes forget that third noble truth, that it is something we can have confidence in, that it's worth the effort, and that there is, you can make a decision, you can change the channel, in other words, you can shift to another way of looking at the world. Now, sometimes people are concerned that if I stop sort of thinking about all the things that preoccupy me, I won't know what to do, I'll be lost, right? There was a woman, I gave a workshop about this time last year to a hospice group, and one of the women in the group said, you know, I can let go of thoughts in my head, but then there's this space in my mind, and it makes me feel very uneasy. I don't know what to do with it, the space. And that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes we worry that that space is somehow ominous or is scary or shouldn't be there, but it really is, it's the space where the universe is holding you. And I could feel that on the tundra, that if I just let go of all the stuff in my head, there was all this universe around me, holding me, that I was still here and embraced by something outside myself. And so you do land safely when you let go of thoughts. It's important because that's, I think, what makes many people anxious about meditation is, if I let go of my stuff, where am I? I have no bearings anymore. And what you discover over time with the practice is that the universe is holding you, whether you're thinking or not. It's there for you. So you do land safely. You can land on the tundra, you can land in the woods like Thoreau did. You can land in the breath. And that's why the breath is so helpful as a means to meditation, because it is your refuge. You always have a place to go. It's right there. There's no question that it exists. There isn't anyone in this room who says there is no breathing. We're all convinced of that fact, right? There's no getting around it. So you have a safe haven, as it were, in the breath. You always have the breath to go back to. And Joseph Goldstein talks about this, how when you get all tied up in your thoughts and meditation suddenly seems so complicated and tiresome and tiring, it's so easy to think, I can just return to the breath. So simple, it's just sitting there, going in and out. So I can relax into that. I have another quote from Rosenberg. Thoughts versus, I'm going to say, reality. If this is so fulfilling, that is, focus on the breath, finding refuge outside yourself. If this is so fulfilling, and that, i.e. thoughts, is so unfulfilling, why am I doing so little of this and so much of that? You begin to see that there is a kind of peace available inside you. Your confidence in the value of a concentrated mind grows, and you naturally become much more interested in developing it. So, once again, that notion of having confidence in the process is really quite crucial. Now, reality is not always pleasant. So the tundra was great. The woods are beautiful for Thoreau. The breath can be lovely. It's very pleasant to breathe once you sort of settle into the breath and feel the natural movement of the body. It's a lovely feeling. But this is not about finding pleasant spots to land. This is about finding reality. And it's being connected with what is. It's the connection that's liberating, not the content, whether something is great or beautiful or not so nice and ugly. It's about connecting with what is there, with what is. So sometimes we have dark stuff come up in our minds. We need to connect with that as much as we need to connect with the beautiful thoughts that we have or the comfort that we feel in meditation. My experience with people in palliative care has almost invariably been, please tell me the truth. I am so tired of not knowing what's going to happen to me. Can you tell me? And people have asked me this many times. Can you tell me what it's going to be like to die? I want to know, because not knowing, I have nothing, I don't know, I'm lost. I need to connect with the truth about what is happening to me. And you'd be amazed how, if you give people the opportunity to ask questions, they will frequently ask that of someone that they trust that can hold that question. That's a pretty alarming question for many people to hear, but those of us in palliative care, we get used to that pretty quickly. And we have answers. And so people feel so relieved that they can, first of all, express their anxiety about it, but second of all, that they have a bit of a plan. They know what's ahead. We can't be definite about exactly what's going to happen, but we can give some landmarks along the way. So it is better to know than to float and avoid. To connect with reality, even though it's a dark and unwanted one, is better than being disconnected. An even more graphic example of this is the following. This is again from Rosenberg. I'm not going to do too many of these, but a few of them just popped up as I was writing this talk. There's a Swedish film that Rosenberg talks about called The Slingshot, never heard of it myself, about a family of socialists in Sweden who were promoting contraceptions and women's rights and fighting fascism. In one scene, the police come to a public gathering and start roughing people up, breaking heads. The young son of the household climbs up into the rafters, and when he sees his father getting clobbered, he looks away. He just can't take it. The father notices that. And when he comes back from jail, the father takes his son aside and says, "I saw you close your eyes." He said, "Listen, son, revolutionaries never close their eyes." So all this by way of pointing out that this isn't a process where we all go floating off into la la land. We're looking at things as they are, but when you see things as they are, then you can start engaging with them and do something about them. Make the world a better place. So, when we sit to meditate, the idea is not, I'm going to stay with the breath, I have the goal, I'm going to sit for 30 minutes, and I'm only going to let myself go off the breath once or twice, and I'm going to really get somewhere this time. No, the mindset is this: I'm going to have some thoughts. This is natural. Some thoughts are good, some are not. Most thoughts are quite illusory, and they serve the ego. Sometimes they're necessary. But my intention is to use a different sensory apparatus to see the world, to see how the world is revealed to me through the senses, how it feels, what the raw experience is. If you think of infants, a really like a newborn, they sense the world only through the senses. That's kind of what we're aiming for, but there's nothing infantile or childish about this. What we are doing is reawakening our ability to see the world without the interference of distorting thoughts, the worries, the projections, the things that make us misrepresent the world to ourselves. So we're not stopping thoughts at all, but we're placing the attention intentionally on what the senses are sensing. So when I asked you in the meditation to feel what's it like to hear a sound, to be aware of your body, what the tension in your body, just feeling that without having to interpret it or comment or editorialize on it. Just what does it feel like? In some ways, for those of you with a science background, that includes many of us, this is really basic science. When you think about it, we're reducing the variables so that we can get as close as we can to reality, to the reality of what is observed as we can. The variables being all the things we want to see, we wish we didn't have to see, all the spin-off stories that we tell ourselves about what we're feeling and sensing. All of that stuff, that distorts what we're actually wanting to look at. So in a scientific method, why the first objective is to remove as many variables like that as you can, where we're projecting what we want onto what is observed, because that distorts what we see then, doesn't it? There was a Zen teacher who commented in a talk she gave a long time ago in Ottawa, as a matter of fact. She said, everything that we perceive, everything is a projection. But in Zen and in Buddhism in general, most meditative traditions, we are manipulating the projection so that we can get as close as we can to what is true. You can never get away from your eyes see in a particular way, your ears hear in a particular way. So we're primed to see life from a particular vantage point. There's nothing that we can do about that. But we add on an awful lot more to what we perceive than is warranted. And so she says we manipulate our projections so that we minimize them and get as close as we can to what is true. So our expectations when we sit to meditate, and I don't know how many of you felt this when you first got going on counting the breaths, a sense of I've got to get this right, or I wish I could get to 5, and oh damn, I didn't get to 5 that time, or I got lost and here I'm thinking about my laundry list or whatever. I'm guessing that for some of you, you got distracted. The goal is to recognize that you can go back and forth between the two. So we can relax about the intrusiveness of thoughts, because that's what thoughts do. They intrude. That's how we're made. They're always going to show up, but we always have a choice to move between thought and what we sense, what it feels like, as opposed to what we think about it. So I would like to suggest that when we sit to meditate, we make an intention, not that it's a goal that I'm going to get something accomplished in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half hour, however long you meditate for, but rather that I'm going to allow myself to go back and forth between thought and how I feel, how it feels, my experience. And when I catch myself drifting off, I can choose to change the channel and come back. But we beat ourselves up a lot, don't we? But when we miss, and oh geez, it's been half an hour meditating, but I probably got 5 breaths in and the rest was blah, 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 blah. But I sorted out a lot of stuff, but it doesn't feel very sorted out. But did I meditate? No, not much. And so we are quite punitive towards ourselves about this. There's no need, because that's just kind of how it is. There are thoughts and there is experience, and you can navigate between the two. So if there's nothing else you take away from tonight, it's to relieve yourselves of the burden of having to achieve something in your meditation, where it's not about a goal. Rosenberg says we all want to go from A to B, but to get from A to B, you need to be at A. Stay at A and connect with what is. Go back and forth. Just be where you are now. And the process, the meditative process, will itself take you to be when you're ready for it. So there are many good ways to practice. There are dozens and dozens of meditative traditions. I'm going to speak about the 2 basic ones tonight, and they go hand in hand. One is a type of what we call samadhi meditation, which is what you were doing at the beginning of the session. Concentration, right? Focusing on the breath, constantly coming back to the breath. So it's kind of, some people call it the brute force method, because you're turning from thoughts directly back to the breath at every opportunity. As soon as you awaken to the fact that your mind has wandered, bang, you go right back. There's no negotiation there. You're back on the breath. So it's a little more rigid, but what it does do is improve your skill at concentration. It trains the mind. It gives muscle power to your mind, that constant working to come back to the breath. I mentioned about going back and forth between thought and experience, and we expect that to happen, so we don't beat ourselves up. But we also note that we're building strength as we do this practice. Sometimes you may have noticed you breathe in, you got a little ways in, and then you wandered off, and then you came back and breathed in a little bit more, and even the breath movement, you're sort of there, but there's little interruptions along the way. I don't know if any of you had that experience, but some of us just fly off into the ether and we're gone. Others of us, at times, we can stay with the breath, but there's these little wiggles where we wobble, and go off and come back. So that's okay. My phrase for that is, that was good enough. Good enough. Go on to the next breath. So again, we are so self-critical that we tend, even when we're pretty close on the breath, a little wobble, oops, I'm going off. No, that was good enough for that one, because every little step gets you a little bit further, even if you aren't 100% on. And who is? Even Larry Rosenberg, Joseph Goldstein, they all wander off. They tell stories about that. They've experienced meditative practices for decades and decades, and everybody does this. So it's not a criminal offense to wander off the breath. One thing that is important in this samadhi practice is that, as far as possible, you try to ignore the content of your thoughts. Just, you get going down the stream of my plans for tomorrow, taking the kids somewhere, and as soon as you waken, let that content go and go back to the breath. So you're not going to pursue it any further. The content is not important. You can note thought is there, but don't get into it. That's not this kind of practice. Now, one of the most crucial aspects of the samadhi practice is the moment when you realize that you've gone off the breath. And I know I've spoken about this before in a previous talk, but it's so important that I wanted to bring it up again. The moment of awakening from a reverie, from a wander, is a moment to pay very, very close attention to, because that is awareness happening. Oh, I was there, and now I'm aware that I was there, and I'm in that transition going back to the breath. And it's that moment of awakening that is actually the moment of liberation. Hey, I'm back. This is great. I woke up. And so again, instead of punishing ourselves for wandering off, be happy that you woke up. I had yet another opportunity to experience that nanosecond of awakeness when I came to, and just notice what that feeling is like. This was advice from Joseph Goldstein. I found it extremely helpful. Because we often overlook that, because there's a lot of chatter about, oh, I was off the breath, I got to go back to the breath. But just if you can pause right there and just say, what was that like to wake up? That's awakening. That's the liberation right there. You come out of that lost in thought state, you're awake, and you're going to direct the mind over. And that's that little juncture in there that is so crucially important. So do pay close attention to that. How am I doing time-wise, Christine? If I don't, so if I don't finish all this, I think Phil thought he might have me back to do another session in the spring, so. Okay, so the other kind of meditation is insight meditation. So we've got samadhi or concentration meditation, and we have vipassana or insight meditation. You can use them both interchangeably. In this type of meditation, we actually do pay attention to the thoughts. We don't still pay too much attention to the content, but we're looking very closely at what the thought feels like, what it looks like in our head, and what the pattern of our responses are. I have to catch up with my notes. I've got some notes here that I want to. Page 6. Oh, all this, I don't know if I've said all this or not. In the first samadhi practice, one of the sayings that we can use, which I think is a bit extreme, but this is helpful for some people, is all thoughts are garbage. So if all thoughts are garbage, then we let them go and we go right back to the breath. In this kind of vipassana meditation, all thoughts are not garbage. They're the material that we work with. They're the substrate for our practice. So thoughts are phenomena. They're not garbage, they just show up. They are neither right nor wrong. And I had a psychiatry instructor in second year in nursing who brought this home to me. Her name was Hilda Mertz. She was short and wide, gray hair, frizzy. This is 1971. And she smoked like a chimney in the seminar room. Wooden desks, wooden walls, U of T, very old. And I remember her sitting like this with her coffee there and an ashtray full of cigarettes and her cigarette like this. And she said, girls, because we were all girls at that time, girls, emotions and thoughts are neither good nor bad. They just are. And I big long drag on her cigarette and put it out in the ashtray. I thought, I'll never forget that moment just because of the visuals. I mean, it was just hilarious to see Hilda at her best. But that phrase stayed with me for decades after, that thoughts are neither good nor bad. They just are. Feelings are neither good nor bad. They just are. Crucial lesson for me, who did not grow up thinking that at all, and I'll bet many people in this room didn't either, that we're quite judgmental of the things that we think and feel, right? Parents, school, everybody comes down pretty hard on us when punishing us for feeling what we feel. And so this was a ray of light on the horizon for me, listening to Hilda tell us this. So this is the principle behind Vipassana meditation, that the judgmental term garbage is not applicable here. They are neither right nor wrong. In fact, thoughts are what drive us to be who we are. We organize our world through our thoughts and our emotional responses. And we should be glad we have them, right? They're a sign we're alive. So we need to become friendly to our thoughts. So I'm going to give you another metaphor. It's a bit icky. The nurse in me does this. We've all had skinned our knees when we were kids, right? Sometimes pretty gory. And then we get a scab, right? Remember the scabs you used to get when you were playing as a kid? And you pick at the scab. Remember your parents would tell you, don't pick your scab, and the teacher, don't pick your scab. And remember Arnold in grade 3, picking at his scab in the classroom. Dreadful. But we do that with our thoughts. We get going, we get lost in our thoughts, and we start picking at them and pulling them apart and analyzing them. And what we fail to realize is, like a scab, thoughts are just a protective mechanism to keep us keep our egos oriented and keep us going in the world. And a lot of the thought patterns that we've developed over time are actually defense mechanisms. Like we organize our thoughts to make the world doable for us, and sometimes that's helpful and sometimes it is not helpful. So when we start picking at the scab, we're actually picking at our defenses, the things that we should actually just acknowledge as, in fact, thank. Scabs are good things. They protect the tissue underneath, don't they, while it's healing. And so thoughts can be viewed in a friendly way. Jack Kornfield talks about saying thanks to your thoughts. You have a string of invasive, intrusive thoughts, and thank you for trying to help me. I think I'll just let that go for now. I'm going to go back to the breath. So there's this friendliness that we can develop towards the fact that we have intrusive or unnecessary thoughts that can take us off the track of concentration. So then, when the scab, if we just watch that scab, just let it be, that's what letting go is. It's really letting be. Why, when that scab comes off, how beautiful is that tissue underneath, right? That skin that's grown in. A surgeon would know this, or a physician. You know, when you see how the healed skin looks underneath, that's what we're after. That state of healing, that peacefulness that is underneath the defenses. And it looks so lovely. That is revealed to us if we just allow the scab to not pick at it, because that just messes it up. If we just let it come off on its own by just watching it, what is revealed underneath is very beautiful. All right. Oh, the scar. Then there can be a scar. So even a beautiful healed area, sometimes it heals in such a way that there's a memory of what has happened to you. So that's our life, right? We all have scars. We don't get rid of those scars. As my friend the dermatologist says, the purpose of life is not to go to your grave with perfect skin. And so we can cherish our scars as reminders of the work we've done, who we are, what we were in the world. The scars are okay. And they are also a sign that healing has taken place. So, long extended metaphor. so I won't belabor it any further. All right. We have 2 more minutes.
Well, we could probably.
May I have a few more minutes? I'm not, we have to go at 8:30. You're
We're
not.
not that strict.
Yeah. Right, so I'm going to, there is more that I could say, and I was quite aware as I was putting this together that I had too much material, so I'm okay with shortening things a little bit. But one thing I did want to say is between these 2 elements of the meditative process, concentration and insight, we have the ability to choose which one is helpful to us in the moment. Do I need to work on my concentration today? Okay, well, I'll do a little samadhi work, just back to the breath, back to the breath. No, I think, there's some patterns in my life that I need to just observe how they form in the mind. I'm going to look at my thoughts today. I'm going to work with staying with the breath, but observing what comes up in the mind for me. And whether that element that's in the mind, is this helpful to me? Is it not helpful? Does it create suffering in myself? Does it create suffering in other people? That's how we judge whether to let go of a thought, whether we need to nurture it, or whether we need to leave it be, let it go, and not give it the energy that it needs. So there's lots of patterns. You will have a memory when you're meditating of something that someone did to you one day and you're still angry about it, and you get going on the story, right? And he said that to me, and I should have said this, and I also should have said that, and lots of people do that. If only I had said this, and that would have really got them. And then you get going on the story and what happened before and what's going to happen after, and it goes crazy. If we can stop and just look at what's the pattern here? What am I doing here? And is this pleasant for me? Is this creating more suffering for me? Or is it something that I just need to acknowledge this is something that I do, but I don't need to keep buying into it and nourishing it, because that's what causes me pain. And if you look at particular thoughts, you think if you're angry at somebody, you're so self-righteous, I'm right, and that feels good. And then you think, well, actually, it doesn't feel that great to feel so angry. If you look more deeply, what is my feeling underneath this? Well, it's actually not that great. So maybe I should just think about abandoning that attachment to that particular pattern of thoughts. There's much more that can be said about this, but my point is that you have the liberty to decide how you're going to manage what comes up. You can choose whether to do concentration or vipassana or insight, and in the insight portion, you can choose what to do with your thoughts. And sometimes you can get so messed up in your thoughts that you just have to go back to the breath. You're just all at 6s and 7s. And so my last point is confusion. We tend often just to say, oh, this is so confusing, I just can't, this meditation's really tough because I'm just so confused. Confusion is a mind state, like any other. It's like anger, it's like fear, it's like everything else that comes up in your mind, and sometimes we have confusion. And so is it possible for me to just acknowledge confusion is present? Let's leave it at that, right? Just, I'm confused. You're not the only person on the planet who's been confused. And what does confusion feel like? Well, it doesn't feel that great, but can you sit with it? Yeah. So there's another quote that I have on confusion. It's my last one. Oh no, that's not it. Yes. This is another Zen master advising his student who is confused. Can't decide, because a lot of confusion is about, I don't know what to do. Should I do vipassana? Should I do concentration? What do I do with these thoughts? All these questions that come up. Can't decide? Great decision. My teacher, says the Zen teacher, he said, if you confused, do confused. Do not be confused by confusion. Understand? Be totally confused. Then I guarantee, no problem at all. So don't shrink from confusion or buy into it. It's just, there is sometimes confusion in the mind because we don't have enough data to figure out what to do. So just wait and become familiar and comfortable with that sensation of confusion. And all of these states that we become more familiar with anger, fear, confusion, lust, greed, all of the whole gamut. If we can connect with those in ourselves, why we can connect, we can understand when other people say they're angry or they're fearful or they're confused. Yeah, I know what that's like. I have been there too. That gives us an avenue towards empathy with other people. And I'll end on that note that meditation is all about going in to understand the self so you can go back out and understand other people and the world around you. It is not an inward and end state, inward process. It's so that you then emerge again from the preoccupations of the self, you go back out into the world. So the purpose of meditation is to both the purpose of life is to both see and to be seen. So we need to be out there. But we can be out there in a more wholesome way if we spend a whole lot of time inside first. All right. What do you think? Are there any questions or comments? Complaints?
Confusion.
Confusion, yeah.
When you are thinking about a problem in your life, or maybe not a problem, but just a situation, you want some clarity on, you sit down, close your eyes, breathe. How do you know if it's the ego that's driving it or your true self?
Oh, so the question is, if there is something that comes up in your life that you want to explore, how do you know whether it's ego-driven or your true self, as it were? To think about that for a second. It's a very good question. Well, first of all, you can ask yourself, what's driving this? Where is this coming from? Or what purpose is it serving? I think there are many good answers to this question. I'm struggling with all of them at the moment, but I think this is a good example of the confusion. Do you need an answer to that question? And if you can just stay with, I don't know, I don't know, not knowing. Eventually that question with the two poles, is it ego or is it something called my true self? That polarization dissolves. It does not become an issue. It's not the polarity that you thought it was, because in meditation, both A and B are true. And it's being able to step beyond both and see, okay, there's a question here. It's about this and that. But that's the reality, is there's a question. And just to sit with that and see what happens. My confusion, my doubt. The other way of looking at it is what I was commenting earlier about, is it causing suffering? Like, what does this thought process or this phenomenon in my mind push me to do? Is it represented in one of the hindrances like greed or anger or restlessness or fear, or is there an emotion that's behind it? And is it serving that purpose? Or is it something that I should cultivate? Never mind whether it's ego or not, but is it something that I can cultivate that makes me feel more at peace with myself and at peace in the rest of the world? And most of the time, ego-driven thoughts are intended to support the needs of the ego. And those needs, we all have them, and they're good to have in certain circumstances, but they certainly they create a lot of distance between you and other people and the rest of the world. So it is important to identify when you're serving the ego and when you're not. But to make the distinction between ego and true self, I think that's where, what is a true self? The true self is the inquiring mind, right? The mind that wants to, is in this dichotomy, this predicament, that's your questioning mind, and that's the true self. It's not some entity that you, oh, okay, I'm now in my true self. Well, that's a changing phenomenon like every other notion about yourself. And so the notion of true self is another ego, in a sense. So I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear, but it's being able to step back from that polarity and ask yourself some moral questions about it. What is this? How is this driving my behavior? But also, I'm in a state of not understanding. I don't know something.
Also, like in what you were saying earlier about that moment of liberation,
Uh-huh.
like that link to that moment.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, just recognizing, hey, that's me with a question.
It's just the discussion that we were just having about ego has been in my mind. Like I've been trying to study what the ego is, and traditionally ego is, like pride. But when you go deeper into ego, it feels like it's a lot more than just pride. It's lack, attachment, control. So I feel I'm not asking a question. I'm just providing my thoughts. That when thoughts come in and they trigger you, is this coming from lack? Is this coming from attachment? Is this coming from control? Is this coming from scarcity? So
Yeah.
it's very deceptive in how it comes within you, and it just triggers a whirlpool within you.
Yes, it's, I'd like to just state your question for the listeners on Zoom, who are not listening right now, but will be. That the ego it can be very deceptive. I'm very much paraphrasing what you said, but it is important to ask the question, where is this thought coming from? What is it serving? And frequently what we see is the ego serving an illusory idea of itself. I don't want to trash the ego too much, because we live in a world where the ego is important. It gives us our energy to get stuff done. A lot of good things can happen because people have egos, but it is tricky, because it can be very, as you say, very deceptive. It can be self-protective at the expense of other people, at the expense of truth. So it is not something to be relied on. It's something to be used with wisdom, very judiciously.
Being aware of it.
Being aware of it is the key.
Keeping in check.
Yeah. The awareness is the key, and that's why all this, our practice is awareness. Thanks, that was a good comment. Anybody else? Take your time, we have time.
How many practices, how many minutes, how many times do I do it? When will I experience something different? You mentioned A to B. Here I am at A. I don't have any intention of where B is, but I would like to be somewhere else than A. So, when do I get the insight?
There's a story, the question is, I'm at A, and I'm waiting to find out when am I going to get to B, because I'm not crazy about being at A. Is that what you're saying? No, there's
I want to
difficulties.
experience the change,
Yeah.
the difference, the improvement. How many?
How long? There is a story about, another Zen story, about a monk who practiced and practiced and practiced for years and was still at A. And the teacher said to him, don't worry, you know A extremely well. You know the lay of the land at A, and that's pretty good. So don't berate yourself for not getting past A, because some people don't even get to A. A lot of people. But what is A like? I think that's the place to start, is what does it feel like to be at A? And is there suffering at A? It sounds as if there is a little bit, because I'm not crazy about being there. But that's a whole other talk about how we address the suffering that is present in ourselves. And how do we have the stamina to withstand facing those realities that are difficult? But the only way out is through. And how long? It's not clear how long. Everybody, as you can guess, is different. But if you're constantly thinking about how long is this going to take, you're not at A. You're somewhere else. Yeah. So one of the other.
I want a different answer.
Yeah, no, you did. Yeah, sorry. But one of the feeling of discouragement can be quite strong. And sometimes we are confronted with phenomena that come up in the mind that at that moment are bigger than we are. And it's very difficult to just sit with really tough stuff. Bad memories, traumatic memories, PTSD kinds of things. There's a lot of stuff that we have seen in ourselves and in our histories that are very, very difficult. Things we've done that we so deeply regret we can't go near them. And sometimes we get to the point where we have enough stamina to deal with them. Other times, specifically in a period of meditation, if those things come up, it is too alarming, it's too big, and we're asking too much of our minds to try and cope with it. So it's important to be extremely gentle when there is intense suffering that comes up in meditation. Take it easy on yourself. Scabs are there for a reason. They're protecting you. And we have to wait until there's enough ballast there to withstand that kind of suffering, and some of it may never be able to be addressed. So the alternative, if it comes up in a moment, in a period of meditation, say in a 30-minute session, and you just think, oh, I just can't take this, it's just the feelings that it arouses in me are so alarming, they're causing me to panic, or they're causing me so much distress, quit meditating, get up, and go do something else. But the thing that you need to do is not, okay, I'm going to do something good for myself for a change. I'm going to grab a box of animal cookies and a People magazine and go sit on the deck. No, don't zone out. Don't do something purposeful. I'm going to call up a friend. I'm going to go down, I've got a job to do downtown. I'm going to go and do that intentionally. So it takes the pressure off the introspection that comes up in the meditative process, but it still keeps you connected. You're just doing something outside that you can put energy into instead of just sitting there feeling like more and more of a wreck. That's not the point of meditation, is to overdo it and make things miserable and overwhelming for yourself. And if it's to that point, then you need to do something else in that moment. And sometimes if this persists over and over, it's a good idea to get some, I'm not saying you directly, Gary, but it's a good idea to think about some therapy, or someone else who can support you or help you, or a meditation teacher who can help support you through those bad moments. Because this is, these practices seem so simple, follow the breath, but they are extremely potent, and they can trigger all kinds of stuff that we need to be aware of. Most of the time, it's fine. But every now and then we can get caught, and Larry Rosenberg is a very good example in his book of a time where he had really what sounded like a complete panic attack while meditating. And he talks about how he worked through it and what happened. But these are signals from the core of our being that we need help. And we can't start performing major surgery on ourselves. So it's important to be very gentle and know when I'm getting out of my league here and go and do something else.
I wanted to, if I might, re-emphasize, you said so much, but there were some invaluable points that Mary made that I just wanted to come back to. So how many people here meditate? Put your hands up.
But if you
Whatever. And how many people practice mindfulness during the day?
Yeah, you see, there we go.
Great, because I think that's really a very important
Yeah.
distinction. meditation is a formal practice of sitting
Yeah,
that may include mindfulness. The critical aspect of mindfulness is not what you experience, but how you are in relationship
yeah,
with what you experience. This is not freedom from pain and suffering.
no,
It is the capacity to have the freedom to be with pain and suffering. That's what mindfulness is. And Mary said 3 critical points that can help you during the daytime, as well as with your practice, when those thoughts come up. Number 1, label your thoughts. When pain comes, anger comes, joy comes, say to yourself, knowing pain. There's something very critical in doing that, and what you're doing is you are stepping back. You're creating distance. You're not identifying. Label your experience. Number 2, what did Mary mention? Using the breath. Why is the breath so important? Exhalation is the parasympathetic phase of the autonomic nervous system. What does that mean? Relaxation. So when you get upset, immediately label, bring your attention to your breath, and breathe out for at least 1 second longer than you breathe in. And number 3, Mary mentioned this again, embodiment. The problem is we live in our heads. Thoughts are so powerful, they grab us. But to rest in the experiential physicality of what you're experiencing is a way to be with what you are experiencing and allow it to naturally digest and move through. So label, breathe, embody.
yeah, perfect.
Do you want to make a comment about that
Yeah,
comparison or the emphasis? Whenever anybody thinks about meditation or mindfulness, is do you meditate? But no, it's great to see how many people here do mindfulness during. Can you elaborate a bit about that? Because I think that's critical to the path.
yeah, it is critical. Sharon Salzberg, I know I told this story before, but some of you are new. She was asked recently, she's one of the founders of the Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts. She's written lots of books. She's pretty famous and a wonderful teacher, teaches with Joseph Goldstein. And she was asked not too long ago, how long do you meditate every day? And I was expecting some, insurmountable time. And she said, well, if I have time, 20 minutes, maybe, and yeah, exactly. I said, Sharon, to myself, Sharon, that's not very long. And she said, yeah, if I have time in the morning, I 20 minutes. And, but she said, my day is sprinkled with moments of mindfulness. So I come back all the time to what I'm doing, my presence here. I am making a cup of coffee. I am walking on the path. What does it feel like to put my feet on the ground and walk? What does it feel like to eat an orange? So there are countless, an infinite number of moments in the day when mindfulness can be applied through the actions of the body and the sense of what does this feel like? Are you connected? I remember I was saying it's all of meditation and mindfulness are about connection. So if I'm connected with what I'm doing in the day, that's mindfulness. And how many of us do things that are, we're mindless. Washing the dishes. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how much he enjoys washing the dishes because it is a time to be mindful, and he can just concentrate on the feel of the soap and the feel of the water and the touch of the dishes and all of that. So you're practicing mindfulness when you do that through the day, and not everybody's inclined to want to sit on a cushion or on a chair and meditate. It's just not their thing. That doesn't exclude them from the world of mindfulness, because there are so many ways of connecting every day. That's what it's all about. That's life, is connection. So, is that what you were?
Perfect.
I also think sometimes too, and I'm always on my box about this, that Phil, that sometimes it can be, well, for me, I didn't come into the practice through my mind. I came into the practice through my body. like through yoga.
Yeah.
Connection to more than just my thoughts, because I had lived in my mind continuously, was completely disconnected from the rest of myself. And so connecting into the body in a present way, like I love Joseph Goldstein, it's like,
Yeah,
can you just go right now and feel the body sitting?
Yeah.
Like, what does it feel like in your body right now? And know you're sitting.
Yeah.
Like the pressure of how you sit, your feet on the ground.
yeah. What is
Pressure
it
on
feeling?
it, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like the body, and obviously like the breath, but to me, the body has always been a beautiful way to connect to the moment.
What is my body?
Because sometimes we can't get in the breath. If we're anxious, we go into the breath and we get more anxious. And then the thoughts come faster and the emotions as a response to the thoughts. And it can just, I'm not saying it's easy to come into the body either, because for some, it's not. It can be just as challenging, but it can just be another way in.
It depends on your relationship with your body. And many people have a very estranged relationship with their bodies. And that's something worth exploring. But it does make it difficult. I mean, don't start with the hardest thing. Start small. Yeah, it's the little things. The one thing I would add to what Christine has mentioned is that we tend to look at this when we're discussing it like this as a very intense process. Like if there's a lot of work, it's serious, or connecting with the body and all of that. Actually, there's another Zen saying, no big deal, nothing special. There is this idea that Joseph talks about, doesn't he, of settling back. Just settle back. What does it feel like? You're not, the universe is not revolving around you feeling your body. It's not that special. I don't mean to say it's not special at all, but it's not intense. You don't need to look at every moment, oh, am I mindful? Straining too hard. Remember I was saying in the beginning meditation, if I'm striving, I can relax that. There is no need to strive. And that's why the Tara Brach meditation on the video is pretty good, because she uses the breath to help you settle back and just be who you are. Be who you are. No work. So everything that we've said, I believe is true, but we need to add that this is a relaxed way of being, not a strain. It's not a push. I like the notion of settling back in the physical body. It just makes everything go smoother. And some people are so used to intensity, it's hard to be relaxed and smooth because we're so used to being wired and pushing and, forceful and intense. But once you get used to that feeling of, it just feels so much better. And you get more done because you're not expending energy uselessly, straining. So all of this that we've been talking about tonight needs to be taken against the background of settling back, nothing special. It doesn't have to be dramatic. If you've got drama in there, that's ego. Well, I'm a great meditator. I'm really mindful. When you start hearing that in yourself, you have a problem.
So our final few minutes, last chance for questions, comments, thoughts.
What about meditating while you do yoga?
Oh, yeah. Why not? Meditating while you're doing yoga. Yoga is it's a mindfulness of the body practice. Yeah, and the breathing. And for many people who are troubled by being stuck at A, you're not the only one, Gary. Sometimes those movement practices are more beneficial than the sitting ones. Tai Chi, yoga, gardening. There's lots of things. Even for some people, martial arts, properly taught, because they need to express through the body a little more. It's just their nature. Sitting in their head is just, it's just not, doesn't work for them very well. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there final words that you'd like to bring?
I actually remember to do 3 points to summarize tonight. You pester me about it every time, and I never have them ready. This time I
Gently pester.
Remind.
remind.
Oh,
No.
remind.
Yeah, remind.
She's so good with words.
Pester is more dramatic.
Exactly.
So first point, we can have confidence that there's an alternative way to being stuck in our minds and in our thoughts and that eternal round of the self. And the second point, it is not a competition or a goal-oriented process. It's a settling back and a being present with what you are now, just being who you are. Third, self-reliance. You can decide for yourselves how you're going to approach this. Always ask, what is needed now? What do I need now? Do I need concentration? Do I need insight? Do I need to explore this thought or not? You're in charge of the process of your liberation. That's the Buddha's last words. You got any words before you die? And he said, yeah, you're on your own. Figure it out, basically. But that's so liberating because it honors who you are and your ability to decide how you do this. So there is nothing prescriptive here. There's an array of practices that you can choose from. There are many, many options for each moment of practice, and you can decide how you do this. The question always being, what is needed now? What is useful now? What is appropriate now? Okay. That's it.